Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents In Support of Students, A Leader's Guide to Equitable MTSS by Katie Novak, Doctor of Education, and Kristen Rodriguez, Ph.D. Narrated by Angela Juarez. Publisher's Note: this audiobook contains references to material present in the print and ebook editions of the book. Limit of liability, disclaimer of warranty. The publisher and the author make no representations or warranties with respect to the accuracy or completeness of the contents of this work, and specifically disclaim all warranties, including without limitation warranties of fitness for a particular purpose. No warranty may be created or extended by sales or promotional materials. The advice and strategies contained herein may not be suitable for every situation. This work is sold with the understanding that the publisher is not engaged in rendering legal, accounting, or other professional services. If professional assistance is required, the services of a competent professional person should be sought. Neither the publisher nor the author shall be liable for damages arising herefrom. The fact that an organization or website is referred to in this work as a citation and/or a potential source of further information does not mean that the author or the publisher endorses the information the organization or website may provide or recommendations it may make. Further, readers should be aware the internet sites listed in this work may have changed or disappeared between when this work was written and when it is read. Introduction. Recently, while scrolling through social media, an advertisement for a shirt stood out. It noted, "If you're not angry, you're not paying attention." In education, we know the outcomes of our learners, and we know we can do better. Teachers are working way too hard not to have a greater impact on the outcomes of all students, especially those learners who have been historically underserved. Educators around the country are burnt out, overworked, and overwhelmed. These realities are maddening. Despite this, we believe at our core that all students and all educators can experience success when schools and systems get the conditions right for them to be successful. And this requires a systems overhaul, a big one. Federal education law requires the adoption of multi-tiered systems of support to ensure that every student has equitable access to grade-level classrooms, equitable opportunities to learn at high levels, and equitable feelings of belonging and hope. Numerous texts offer theories and conceptual frames for creating these systems, but don't offer the tools to actually put them into practice. We both understand conceptually how ships sail and love the idea of a cruise down to the island of Nevis, but we sure as heck don't know how to build a yacht. Understanding a theory and understanding how to put that theory into practice are not the same. Any attempts to build a boat without concrete tools would result in the Edu version of Gilligan's Island. Note: Lost at Sea. Similarly, leaders and school boards love the idea of inclusive and equitable systems and are committed to the mission of meeting the needs of all learners. What is missing is the guidance on how to accomplish this. We have to provide tools and guidance so that people know how to build a ship, and more importantly, can sail it on both calm waters and choppy seas. As the authors of this text, we are in a unique position as practitioners, lead authors of state MTSS guidance, and consultants with hundreds of districts worldwide to support district and school leaders in creating inclusive, equitable systems using a conversational style, concrete planning tools, numerous analogies, and just the right amount of sass. Thank you for joining us. Chapter 1: Planning for Systems Change. In this chapter, we introduce multi-tiered systems through the lens of complex change theory. Creating robust MTSS requires adaptive change throughout organizations. Facilitating this level of change requires an understanding of complex change, implementation science, and improvement science as drivers of success. We offer a deeper learning model for MTSS, which explicitly connects MTSS to critical equity work and highlights the importance of deep, authentic learning experiences for all students. The view from my window. Kristen. Recently, I moved to the eastern coast of Puerto Rico. Each night, I fall asleep to two sounds, the call of the coqui frog and the whoosh of breaking waves. As the sun peeks out in the morning, the waves serve as an ancient siren song, luring me into the ocean. However, I have yet to heed that call. Instead, I sit at my desk, my fingers on the keyboard, staring at the blue light, until I'm too exhausted to consider a moonlight voyage. It seems obvious that I should slam the laptop shut, walk over to the marina I can see from my terrace, and sail away. I promise that someday soon I will charter a catamaran to Culebra, an island that encompasses wonders beneath its waves, spending a day filled with white sand, calm waters, and the sea life that I only see in the framed photos on my office wall. It is not like I haven't taken some steps toward this goal. I even bought a snorkel. It currently sits in a drawer, in its plastic packaging, not yet having had the chance to peek at the leatherback turtles that hatch off my island shore that serves as protected land. I have the desire, the equipment, and the vision, but I have not yet taken all the steps necessary to change. It's time. Our call. We have all been engulfed by waves of educational shifts that pull us to make changes. While the past few years have taught us resiliency, they have also taught us that what we thought was and always would be the model for education in this country is quite malleable. If ever there was a time for us to evaluate our systems to design ones that can be more proactive, more responsive, and more successful, it is now. Like us, you know, without a doubt, that educators are capable of creating something that works better for everyone. You can see it. You have a vision, one that nags at you. As a district leader, a school leader, or a member of a distributed leadership team, you feel in your bones the call for system shifts like the pull of waves in the ocean. However, let's be clear. The work you are doing in schools, the moral imperative of creating something that positively impacts all learners, is far more important and far more complex. The snorkeling anecdote illustrates that even small goals and small changes are difficult to make when we are committed to our routines. Changing how we educate our youth and educators is monumental, but there is a science behind it. We can take steps to realize our vision, but first, we must recognize the challenges we face and create a strategy for addressing those areas. It may be helpful to recognize that two types of challenges require us to change: technical problems and adaptive challenges. Technical problems can be addressed through existing solutions and expert guidance. The barrier of identifying high-quality instructional materials is a technical problem that can be addressed by accessing research from organizations like EdReports and What Works Clearinghouse, and using curriculum alignment rubrics. These types of problems differ from adaptive challenges. For example, learning how to get teachers to use instructional materials in ways that are inclusive, equitable, and promote deeper learning, which requires leaders and stakeholders to collaboratively experiment with new procedures, norms, or beliefs to address problems of practice. A great example of an adaptive challenge as it relates to curriculum adoption was discussed by Pack and colleagues in the research paper The Adaptive Challenges of Curriculum Implementation. It helps to adaptively uncover some of the root causes behind teachers' issues with these technical resources, as some of these root causes address teachers' mindsets about student ability and cultural interests, as in the adaptive challenges of speaking to the unspeakable. While there were teachers across all districts who appreciated the rigor of the provided curriculum for exposing them to the demands of the standards, there were also teachers who expressed that their students did not have the prerequisite skills, prior knowledge, or background experience to keep up with the pacing in the curricula. Teacher interview, Orrington. Statements such as this reflect the fixed mindset that students' intelligence levels are static, rendering them unprepared to take on academic challenges. This example makes it clear that it would be much quicker to adopt a curriculum review rubric than to challenge ableist mindsets about student potential. The work of instructional leaders is to consistently work toward a shared vision while balancing and addressing our system's technical and adaptive barriers. The book UDL Playbook for School and District Leaders shares another example of how adaptive challenges will require much more than technical fixes, and how it's the adaptive challenges that will require long-term commitment, passion, and patience. If you have a negative staff culture, you can't just pick up the phone and fix it. You can't read a blog online or show a video and solve it. There are no procedures addressing what to do when your staff feels hopeless, not listened to, and uninspired. Sure, you can host a morning coffee as a technical band-aid, but that won't solve your problem. Adaptive challenges will take every strength you have. Table 1.1. Technical and adaptive challenges. Technical problem. It is easy to identify. Adaptive challenge. It is difficult to identify. Technical problem. Most of the time has quick and easy solutions, tried and tested. Adaptive challenge. It requires changes in the way things are done, changes in approach to work. Technical problem. It can be solved by expertise or authority generally. Adaptive challenge. People who are working from where the problem is generated need to solve it. Technical problem. It requires small changes within organizational boundaries. Adaptive challenge. Requires changes in many places that may cross organizational boundaries. Technical problem. People are receptive to technical solutions. Adaptive challenge. People resist acknowledging adaptive challenges. Technical problem. Solutions can be implemented fast and by authority or experts. Adaptive challenge. Solutions emerge from experimentation and discovery and take a long time to implement. Pause and reflect. Brainstorm some of the challenges you are facing in your leadership practice as it relates to building a system that supports all learners. Are they technical problems or adaptive challenges? Suppose you and your team have already completed an equity review or a district self-assessment. In that case, you may have begun to invest in necessary changes, but your district will not realize full implementation and complex change until all the systems are in place, and that work is not easy. We want you to feel confident in navigating the tides of systems change. We are here to charter this journey with you. When we finally build the multi-tiered system that our students, staff, families, and communities deserve, we can all celebrate with a snorkeling trip. Bring your sunscreen and life preservers. The need for complex change. The persistent achievement gap between privileged and non-privileged populations has been referred to as the most stubborn, perplexing issue confronting American schools today. Some researchers argue that the achievement and opportunity gaps are an act of civil war. We all know this needs to change. What is missing is concrete guidance on how to accomplish this. Creating robust, multi-tiered systems will require us to make significant changes to our systems and structures. Understanding change theory, therefore, is a helpful foundation for thinking about the work ahead. Understanding the bigger picture of how change occurs helps visualize the journey. In the following sections, we will unpack major change theories and make concrete connections to how these theories will impact your work in building comprehensive MTSS systems. Think of them as tools in your toolbox as you learn more about how to put theory into practice. Unfreeze, change, refreeze model. In 1947, Kurt Lewin theorized the unfreeze, change, refreeze model, which argued that for change to occur, practitioners have to reject and replace prior systems. Prior systems are the current beliefs, practices, and routines we must change. Turns out this is much more difficult than one would think. The book, Unlearning, Changing Your Beliefs and Practices with UDL, notes how difficult it is to unfreeze simple facts we think we understand. For example, it is a simple fact that when there is no light, there is no color. When you look at an apple, it looks red because wavelengths of light are reflected from the apple onto the cone photoreceptors in your eyes. You perceive the redness because of the reflection of that light. Without light, there is no color. Literally nothing is reflected onto the cones of your eyes, so there is nothing to perceive. No electrical signal goes to your brain. Nothing is stimulated. However, regardless of these scientific facts, individuals who have been placed in a completely dark room, a room where absolutely no light can enter, still claim to see an apple as being red. They know that there is no light in the room, and they have learned the science that explains how, in an absence of light, there is no color. However, they still claim to see color. They use reasoning such as, my eyes must not have adjusted to the dark yet, so I could still see the redness. Or, there must have been some light that somehow got into the room. They still see the apple as red, even though it is impossible, simply because they believe the apple is red, and beliefs and practices are hard to change. Too often in our systems, practices and procedures are followed because they were followed before. Consider the following responses. That's how we have always done it. That's what the contract says. No one has ever questioned this before. Why are we suddenly changing everything? All of these responses come from individuals who are frozen in the current model. Sadly, the current model was not built for all students, and freezing there leads to the continuation of oppressive, inequitable, and exclusionary practices and systems. Let's discuss a specific example. There are silos between general and special education in many schools and districts. Students who receive special education services are referred to as special education students, or more derogatory terms, for example, SPED, as opposed to recognizing that all students are general education students first, and serving students with disabilities is the responsibility of all teachers. Many practitioners are frozen in thinking about special education as a location or a program instead of programming. Terms like my kids, your kids, and those kids are evidence of these silos. This mindset is so pervasive in the system that many educators do not challenge it. Simply, people are frozen in the belief that serving students with disabilities is the responsibility of the special education department. This needs to change. Shifting mindset is challenging and painful because it means acknowledging that current beliefs do not serve all learners. Pause and reflect. What are some places where your colleagues are frozen? Are there any places where you are frozen in your practices? Change is possible, however, when we challenge mindsets and build systems that support collective teacher efficacy. What is problematic, however, is that when we challenge and change mindsets, educators often refreeze. This frequently occurs when educators acknowledge, "I used to think blank, but now I think blank." We need to take it a step further in our systems today and recognize, in the future, I may think differently. To build inclusive and equitable systems, we must be flexible enough to know that our work is ongoing and cyclical. For these reasons, we both strongly advocate that the freeze is unnecessary. We have to be open to change and ready to adapt when evidence suggests there is a better way to do things. We advocate for an unlearning process that supports a cycle of reflect, change, growth. Concerns-based adoption. To unfreeze mindsets that do not serve all learners, it is helpful to understand the concept of concerns-based adoption and how people experience change. Hall, Wallace, and Dossett proposed this model to outline the stages that people go through as they experience change and the corresponding questions that define each stage. Table 1.2, Concerns-Based Adoption Model. Stage, awareness. General concern. What is this change I've been hearing about? Stage, information. General concern. Tell me everything I need to know. Stage, personal. General concern. What does this mean for me? Stage, management. General concern. How will I manage all this? Stage, consequence. General concern. What will happen if I implement the change? What if I do not? Stage, collaboration. General concern. How can we help each other through this change? Stage, refocusing. General concern. How can we make this even better? Pause and reflect. As you reflect on the stages of the concerns-based adoption model, consider staff members who are in each stage. Where are you currently as it relates to creating an inclusive and equitable MTSS? When a change in an organization is introduced, people learn about this change and naturally want to know more. Let's continue with the frozen mindset that students with disabilities are primarily the responsibility of the special education department. As we build awareness of MTSS in our organizations, it must be clear that we need inclusive practices and placements. All students, including those with significant support needs, deserve equitable access to grade-level learning in general education classrooms with their peers. A vision is necessary to build awareness, but it is not sufficient. All staff, including general and special educators, need a skill set that allows them to collaborate to meet the needs of all learners. All teachers need to build subject matter expertise, universally design instruction, incorporate best practices in social and emotional learning, design behavioral expectations that are culturally responsive, and design classrooms that are linguistically appropriate, culturally sustaining, and evidence-enforced. In addition to these skills, special educators tailor specially designed instruction aligned to students' IEP goals. As we share information about MTSS, we have to be transparent about what it means to educators, their working relationships, and their job responsibilities. As teachers learn more about the required changes, they ask, how can I manage all this? We must share how the system will support their collective efficacy at this stage. General and special educators need support to sustain healthy working relationships and co-teaching models. Without ongoing professional learning, instructional coaching, common planning, and strong systems for educator evaluation, educators will feel anxious, overwhelmed, and potentially ineffective. If we want to support the Reflect, Change, Growth model, we need to provide high-quality professional learning experiences, high-quality instructional materials, and ongoing support. As educators and former administrators, we both know that people aren't lining up begging for change. As we discussed with the unfreeze, change, refreeze model, change is painful. We have to incentivize change. Educators will ask, well, what happens if we do this? We need to have an answer. For example, we can offer early adopters the opportunity to pilot new resources, opportunities to receive additional support in the form of a co-teaching partner or instructional coaching support, and/or the opportunity to become a part of a distributed leadership team, and so on. We need to help both general and special educators recognize that change is worthwhile. To do that, we must be strategic. If we just put up a banner that reads, "Everyone change now, it's the right thing to do," we can expect some significant resistance. At the consequence stage, it is also critical that we discuss what will happen if educators do not implement changes. This is not meant to be a time to dish out threats and punishments, but we need to create a robust accountability system to support the change. We need administrators to have radical candor and say, implementing inclusive practices and serving students with disabilities is not optional. If you struggle with this change, we will provide instructional coaching cycles, targeted feedback, and the necessary resources to increase your efficacy. You may be reflecting on the concerns-based adoption model and thinking, there is no way we can put all of this into place right away, which puts you in the management phase. Worry not, we will provide you with the necessary support and structure to move through this phase. Implementation science. Systems change requires us to address numerous elements. How do we create a strategic plan that addresses this? This is where the field of implementation science comes in. Implementation science is a term broadly used across several fields to describe how evidence-based programs are put into action to produce outcomes. The Every Student Succeeds Act emphasizes the use of evidence-based activities, strategies, and interventions, collectively referred to as interventions. The term evidence-based means an intervention that demonstrates a statistically significant effect on improving student outcomes or other relevant outcomes. Unless otherwise specified, evidence-based means meets any of the 4 evidence levels described next. The criteria for identifying evidence-based interventions based on each of ESSA's 4 levels are as follows. Strong evidence from at least one well-designed and well-implemented experimental study. Moderate evidence from at least one well-designed and well-implemented quasi-experimental study. Promising evidence from at least one well-designed and well-implemented correlational study with statistical controls for selection bias. Demonstrating a rationale based on high-quality research findings or positive evaluation that such activity, strategy, or intervention is likely to improve student outcomes or other relevant outcomes, and includes ongoing efforts to examine the effects of such activity, strategy, or intervention. The National Implementation Research Network, NIRN, conducted a meta-analysis of more than 800 articles related to implementation practices to devise a model of implementation science, which can be simplified in the equation effective interventions times effective implementation equals improved outcomes. Ensuring that effective interventions are evidence-based is necessary for improved outcomes, but not sufficient. As the equation suggests, we need effective implementation as well. As consultants, we have worked with countless districts that want to change and know what.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?